at some point you can start to make money. It's not just a money pit. I keep telling my wife that.
Well, you can get in trouble later.
He's always
but splits are to me that is one way to do it. Now the third way to do splits is a walk away split, and there's a million YouTube videos, but literally I showed you earlier. You just go in here. If I was going to do a walk away, you want an excess amount of bees. So say it's April or May, you just take 2 frames of brood and you put it over here in your nuke. And usually what I do is I'll find where the queen is, and we've got those little cage clips, and I'll just put her to the side. And I'll shake in maybe 2 or 3 more. And this is how we started when we started. Before I knew anything about grafting, I knew how to do a walk-away split. But the problem is all your foragers fly home, and there's not enough nurse bees here to make quality cells, because foragers don't care about making quality queens. Only the nurse bees do. So the ticket there is I would shake in, excuse me, like 3 more frames. Just shake all the bees in this box with those 2 frames of brood. And now majority of those are foragers. They'll come home, but you've got enough left behind there. If you want to make really quality queens, feed them. Thin syrup, less than 1-to-1. I either feed thin syrup or thick syrup, but I don't feed 1-to-1. Thin syrup's more like nectar. Thin syrup is easier on Ashby's pocketbook. At our scale right now, it takes a pallet of sugar to feed all the bees. That's 2,500 pounds. That's 1 feeding every 2 weeks.
Everybody thinks we're making moonshine, but in fact we are not.
Yeah, I mean,
They really do.
we know. I call my guy over. I got to know my manager at Walmart, and I'm very blessed. And the whole management team has been very helpful. And I tell everybody I'm a local guy, but money, it comes down to money, and still the cheapest place is Walmart. And where I can, I avoid Walmart, but right now, if somebody's got a better lick on sugar, come on. But I mean,
we'll take the sugar off the ground, whatever sugar.
We'll take sugar scrapings. I've wheeled and dealed for sugar last year from people who had excess from another project, breweries. I mean, we negotiate for sugar. But really, this year some people don't feed. Some people leave a lot of honey. I like my bees to live through winter. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, and that's one other thing is, starting about September 20th, the goldenrod's full on. You can kind of tell how much last year we got a hurricane come through and wiped out most of the goldenrod. So you've got a month to really sock that 2-to-1 feed to them. And I like them to do most of the work because I don't have time. So we'll feed them 2-to-1 and then let them store it away where they want to store it. And then again, I don't want to open the hive again after October 20th. That's the last time I want to be in. We get warm days in November, December, but if I have it my way, that's our last date. So the last thing we talk about tonight is queen castles. So you have to forgive me. I'm gonna eat here. Okay. So queen castles are simply a 10-frame box. As you can see, they have four 2-frame compartments. And this works really well in spring. You can build your own. A couple of things that I did, let's start with the wrong. Put the handles here, and I wish I'd put handles on either end as well. As far as, forgive me guys, so we've got a hole on each side. So this hole, we're going to call these spot 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the hole here is for spot 2, and the hole here is for spot 3. This is for 4, and this is for 1. And when you have so many virgins trying to come home, you don't want them to get lost. So we get on Amazon and we order waterproof playing cards, like poker cards. It's like $4 a pack, and they'll last the season. And I put a spade over here and a club over here, and then a diamond and a heart. But I make sure that if this is the ace, then that's the king. and this is a 4, and I just staple gun one staple right next to the hole. And what that does is that queen goes out for her mate. She orients just like other bees do. And now she knows she's the ace of spades and she's the queen of hearts. It's just an identifier next to the hole to make sure she gets home to the right place as cheap as you can possibly do it. And again, if somebody comes up with a better idea, please let me know. But honestly, $30 for, we run 70 queen castles like this. The dividers are Luon. It's a 5mm Luon. You can buy these at the bee supply stores. We built all of our stuff from scratch ourselves. But I mean, obviously, if you're a woodworker, you can build your own or buy them. All right. So the positive to this is, and here's another thing to talk about. I build all my boxes a 1/2 inch wider this way than standard boxes. I don't know if many of you have experienced this, but if your frame is right up near the edge like this, the bees can't get in here well to draw it out, and then the bees can't police this area for small hive beetles. And I recognize that as a problem early on. So I built all my equipment a 1/2 inch wider, so when my 10 frames are together, there's almost a 1/2 inch on either side. And the bees rarely fill it with wax, but now they can police the whole outside, and we get lower small hive beetle numbers just by doing that little thing. So if you're building your own, there's a little tip. With the entrance holes, I drill them at an upward angle, like a 30 degrees upward angle, so that rain can't run in. It just keeps the rain out. And then another thing to talk about is I don't have any inner covers. We just run what's called a migratory lid. It's just a flat lid. So you have to make sure that, and I'm going to show you how much this matters here. I don't know if you can see on this plane, but this Luon sticks up about 1/8 inch, and this one here, the middle one, is down about 1/8 inch, and that's almost a 1/4 inch. Well, that queen in spot 2 can now go over the wall to spot 3. So the trick there is porch screen. We have porch screen, like the fiberglass stuff, laid across the top, and it just keeps them from going over. Some people use like feed bags, feed sacks. You just need, this is a lesson we learned the whole first year. We kept wondering, like, why are we having these misses, but there's not a queen in it. You think about all this time, right? You're looking at a 2-frame hive going, where's this queen at? She can't be in so many places. And then you realize the queen has been going back and forth over the wall. It's like an aha moment. One other thing that we did is, I'm trying not to let this chair flip over. You see the 4 holes? So who here is familiar with a double screen bottom board or a Snell Grove board? 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me let you know, it doesn't matter if it's 3/8 plywood or I run 1 inch thick boards, but that screen strip is on the inside as well as the outside. And our only goal with that, imagine that we put this on top of a hive in early spring, particularly like late March, early April. The heat from the strong colony can make its way up through. But because the screen on either side is 1 inch apart, the bees can't touch and pass the pheromone. So we have 2 separate colonies, or in this case, 4 colonies over 1. And Bob Benny does a lot of double screen boards. I'm going to be making double screen boards over the winter this year. Last year I didn't see the value in it. Time taught me otherwise. There's a huge value. If you don't know what a double screen board is, I encourage everybody to get a couple. And the management strategy there is just, you can put a weak hive over a strong hive. So one thing we're going to do different this winter, I use frame feeders to feed like the mother load. I like the 1 gallons. So this year, going into winter, we're going to remove the Luon, and now we have room for 4 frames and a gallon feeder. And I can run 2 weak nukes over a strong colony through the winter. I like going into winter with 3-frame nukes. A lot of people criticize me on that one, but you wouldn't believe how well they do. You don't get a split off of them during spring, but I'm a numbers guy. It drives Corey nuts. But let me talk real numbers for you for a second. So a 5-frame nuke is going to take about 2.5 gallons of feed to get ready for winter. A single 10-frame is going to take 4 to 5 gallons depending on how much goldenrod they take. 10 frame double deep will take 7 to 8 gallons of feed. If a gallon of feed costs you, let's call it $7, then it costs $56 to get a 10 frame double deep ready for winter, just in feed, versus that 3 framer only costs $14. Apivar, to treat that 10 frame double deep is like $18 an Apivar. So I like to take everything down to singles, which is a 10 frame single by August 1st, so that it's only $9 per treatment per colony. But if you've got these little weak 3, 4, 5 frame nukes, it only takes a strip or two depending on how many bees they've got in them. Now you're talking about $3, $4, $5, or $3 or $6, $3 a strip, so $3 or $6 per colony. So when dollars matter, so your trade-off, if you go through winter with a weak 3, it's going to grow in the spring, right in time for the honey flow, and you're never going to take a split off of it. And as long as you can keep it from swarming, they'll make honey, and you'll have a great year. A 10 frame double deep, most of mine we took 2 nukes out of them, and so I learned last year for business purposes, we like 10 frame double deeps over winter where we can. But not every, I don't always have the drawn comb or the boxes or the frames or the equipment. These are all logistics. But I'm new to business. Both my parents are school teachers. And I tell people we had enough growing up, but not extra. And everybody in my family thinks I'm crazy for wanting to go into a business, much less bees, with all the threats to them. But we're doing okay. Average age beekeeper is 62 this year. He wants to get out of the business. I'm 38 and I want in. So somebody's got to step up. One thing I did differently this year, all my 10 frame boxes I built, instead of having 3 grooves in them, now we have just 2 grooves in them, so that we can make 3 framers out of every 10 frame box. And the only equipment it requires is a double screen board with the appropriate wood rises to meet this luan. So any box in my operation can now be swapped into a queen castle. To make a double screen board costs you about $5. So if we look at 500 colonies, it's $2,500. That's a very cheap piece of equipment. I mean, most people who keep, everybody in here, but we all agree it probably spent $1,500 to $2,000 for your first quart of honey. At least, right? But it's true. And new people getting in, they're like, I'm gonna set those bees and forget about them. It's gonna be great. They're gonna make me honey. I'm never gonna get stung, right? Like this is there. I think everybody's been in that dreamer phase. I know I was. And then then all of a sudden you say, I want to be. It's like bees and chicken math go together for me. You familiar with chicken math? Yeah. So our quick backstory: I had 2. I got 2 packages, and within a week the first one was gone. Within 3 weeks the second one was gone. And then the go-getter that I am, we were at the farm stand, and the lady says, I've got some bees, they're in my front porch. My dad was a beekeeper. I'd love you to come get them. And I was like, yeah, sure. I can. Well, it was in 2020. It was that hot week. It was like 107 degrees. And she custom built her garage with 12-foot ceilings, which is about what this is. So I'm like up on a ladder, and it's a 17 frame deep cutout in the ceiling at 107 degree day, but I got my first colony, So then we caught a swarm, and I stole some assets from that strong hive and gave to the week, and we got through the winter. And then I ordered 50 packages in 2021, and immediately 7 absconded. And if you want my personal opinion, I hate packages, and I can tell you why, a million reasons why, and I wish I had gone with nukes, but now I know. And when you don't know how to split, packages are cheap, but when you know how to make splits, those nukes are the way to go, because especially if you get them from like the right person, you just leave them in there an extra week, and now they make all the sales, and you make all the splits and double up right away. It's just things you don't know when you're starting out. And so we grew, and we grew up to about 109, And then Ashby didn't understand how much sugar water is required to feed bees. So August 1st, I put my Apivar strips in. Yeah, they got one frame of honey. They'll be okay. Sure. We come back September 1st to feed. We lost 25 out of 109 to starvation because nobody told me how much they need to be fed. Now I know. So then we went into winter with 87. We come out with 77. This is last year. And we took 77 up to 307, and then came out at 256. Right now we're about 500. So it's chicken math, you know. But I want to do it full time. So my goal is to get to a point where we can leave our day job. And, Corey has recently graduated nursing school, so she's going to nurse for a little bit while
I'm gonna be a sugar mom. Apparently, I didn't know that I was signing up for that. But literally, the sugar mama buying all the sugar. Yeah.
But we're getting the hang of this whole bee biz thing, and I tell people this: keeping bees is not that hard. It's the finite details that you just learn at clubs and YouTube and get to know somebody. And I have a commute to my day job, so I'm able to talk with people. And what I eventually learned is, if you ask 10 beekeepers, at a certain scale of beekeeper, you no longer get 10 answers. These guys tell you 2 answers, 3 answers. You could do it this way, but this is the most efficient way or the most cost-effective way. And you find out there's really not 10 ways to beekeep. Everybody's doing the same thing for a reason. It's either your time matters or your money matters, and sometimes both. But yeah, so I'm gonna leave it open. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have a feeding schedule
Yes.
that you follow?
So we will start feeding. We're gonna pull honey a little late because of my work schedule this year. So we're gonna pull honey the week of the 12th through the 19th of June, so about 2 weeks away. And as soon as we pull honey off, then I will feed. So we will let honey sit in our honey house for 2 days with a commercial dehydrator and fans on it, because any uncapped honey, we want to get the moisture level way down. And during that time, then, because we just stole the majority of their food, we need to feed them. And so, as I mentioned, I'll feed every 2 weeks. So for us, that's like, I tell people sometime in mid-June, and then we pretty much go. It takes us 3 nights to feed all the bees. I like feeding at night. I love beekeeping at night, by the way. If you don't beekeep at night, y'all need to get on board. All right, there's no suit needed. Red headlamps. It's usually cool. There's no robbing. There's rarely a flying bee, but boy, do they like to crawl. So be careful. So normally I just wear a t-shirt and leather gloves, and then you feel something on your arm immediately and walk away. Occasionally one will come for you. We usually get stung about the same, 5 to 10 times a night. Same thing as keep bees during the day. But I like the cooler weather, and you got to remember during dearth, robbing is the issue. So we run a 55-gallon plastic barrel in the back of the truck, and I use my trolling motor to mix it. And y'all may not know this by my dress, but I'm just like an old redneck, okay? I took my once-a-week bath to come see y'all tonight.
Oh my gosh.
If we can redneck it, we're doing it. So I've got my trolling motor and the marine battery. I got a YouTube video. It's Ashby Farms NC if you want to watch the YouTube videos. But it's a little agricultural 4-gallon per minute pump sprayer that you spray your crops with or ditches with, that kind of thing. And a 100-foot hose. Get the no kink 100-foot hose. And I was told that from another friend. I was like, there's so much hose here. You wouldn't believe how often that 100-foot hose comes in handy. And I just made a little hand valve at the front. It's got a little 90 on it. So what Corey and I team up to is we'll pull up in a yard and I start mixing and she starts opening hives. And so we run 2-way pallets, meaning 2 hives to a pallet. And so when the boxes are together, we always make sure our frame feeders are on the inside next to each other, so that when Corey comes along, she just has to open the lid about 2 inches, each lid 2 inches, so we got a 4-inch gap. And the bees don't come running out at us in the dark. And we don't, particularly in the cooler months, spring and fall, you don't want to let that heat out. So by just having to move it over a little bit, then I can walk by and I can, so while I'm mixing, she'll go through and open them, and normally we let the sugar mix for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll talk or get caught up on something or whatever, and then it only takes, like, when it's thin syrup, it's 14 seconds, and when it's thick syrup, it's 27 seconds to the count in my head. And we can do the whole yard. So usually we're talking about maybe 20-25 minutes per yard, and we keep 40 hives to a yard. Right now we've got 15 yards. So not every yard has 40 at the moment, but going into winter, that's my goal. And so we can go in our cluster them. So if this is Burlington, we have them anywhere from 10 to 25 minutes in every direction around Burlington. It's all rural. We live next to, we had 40 hives next to this neighborhood last year, and it's just, neighbors get stung all the time. I learned my lesson. So, lesson learned. So yeah, we'll get around. So it takes 3 nights, and we just kind of cluster the yards together to feed. But yeah, we'll feed basically every 2 weeks. So July 1st, mid-July, August 1st, mid-August, and then I usually do a September 1st feeding unless goldenrod is on. And I was talking to Jerry earlier. Jerry's got all his hives at one place, and he didn't think about that. He was telling me ahead of time. If you want to run multiple yards, I select my yard locations based on goldenrod flow. So I only knock on doors near a huge field of goldenrod. Goldenrod takes 5 to 7 years to establish. What you need is somebody where it's an old farmer who no longer farms, and let the field sit fallow for a couple, or maybe bush hog once a year, and spread those seeds around. And what I have found, and this is nothing against the old guys, but it's always the old guys that die, and the wife survives, and she let the field go fallow. And you go talk to her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we can put bees," or the neighbors will tell me some form of that same story. That's about all the goldenrod that's left, because most of the fields are now bought up for developments, or somebody's snatching them up for one reason or another. But all my hive locations are next to minimum 5 acres of goldenrod, so that it offsets my cost for winter's food storage. We're gonna let the bees. Joel Salatin says the beeness of the bee or the pigness of the pig. I want the bees to do the work. I don't want to have to pay for sugar. And actually goldenrod and red maple are the 2 best pollens, for the first and the last. And goldenrod, if you've ever smelled it, the honey, some people say it smells like feet, or like a 13-year-old's locker in the gym. I mean, it's that unmistakable goldenrod smell. But I want the bees to go do all the work, so it offsets my costs and sugar to get them ready for winter. So that's a big part of my site selection. Yeah.
When you pull all your honey, you feed right away. Is that 1-to-1, or what do you
So
give?
thin syrup. So in a
Less
fifth.
than that.
Yeah, to give you my numbers, it's 25 gallons, which is 200 pounds of water, and we put in 150 pounds of sugar, 6 bags. So it's 1-to-1 would be 200 pounds to 200 pounds. So we're running more like a 1.3, maybe a 1.5 parts to 1. It's thin. You could feed them more, but my only goal during dearth is to keep. As long as you have that thin nectar source coming in, then the queen continues to lay all summer. I want to make sure that the July 15th bee, the July 15th egg, is now a forager around September the 1st. And goldenrod's going to hit around September the 10th. So all of June into mid-July, we want to feed so that we keep the population up. The negative of keeping population up is your mite levels are going through the roof. So there's trade-offs, but I'm more concerned with that goldenrod flow offsetting my wintertime costs. So I hope, does that answer? Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
You don't leave no honey on.
If there's honey so we run single brood chambers, but right now, like I saw today, I've got a lot of boxes with 10 frames of brood, so there's no honey left on them. We've got some colonies where there's maybe only, like they may have requeened themselves, or if they swarm. So right now we're maybe seeing 5 or 6 frames of brood, and then they've got at least an outside frame on both sides. And then the other thing is we've got to remove at least 1 frame for a feeder coming up. So normally if there's your weakest frame, whatever that looks like, it's going to get pulled out. and then make room for that feeder. But yeah, I don't tend to leave them a lot of spring honey at all. We just use sugar to get through, and then I'm banking on goldenrod later on. If you don't live near, if your bees aren't near a place with goldenrod, you definitely need to leave them honey because of amino acids and vitamins and minerals. In particular, they say your darker honeys are higher in mineral content, so goldenrod definitely qualifies there. And then the other thing is your sugar is just your carbohydrate. Your protein comes from the pollen sources. So we have quite a bit of pollen left over from tulip poplar going into the winter, but our big thing again is we want to capitalize on that goldenrod pollen to get a high quality pollen source. It also offsets my cost of having to feed pollen patties. And pollen patties, nobody's out there like, yeah, they really work. They're like a supplement, but that's like the lowest quality pollen you can do, and goldenrod's your highest quality. So I would rather have the highest quality stuff for the bees.
When do you switch to pig syrup?
Usually after September 20th. I like to do that last feeding depending on if they need it. I'm only worried about starvation. We're not worried about them putting on any weight. If that's September 1st feeding, if they need it, we feed them. If they don't, they don't. We give them 3 weeks there till the 20th of September to see what's going on, because goldenrod will go into October, but we want to see, when it pops, that's when the bees just go to work. If the colony, we literally go around and pick up every colony for what you can tell about. You're looking for a certain weight. If it's not making the grade, then we're gonna just put a mark on it. We're gonna feed it heavy, feed it extra. But most times we try and do everything even through the year at every stage, so that you might end up with a 20-pound difference in early October on the weight of the colony. If one's 20 pounds heavier in sugar than the other, fine. That's one way to think about it. Anybody else? Hey?
Do you pull the feeder out for the winter?
No, I leave the feeder in. The only time I pull the feeder out is for the nectar flow. So they're getting ready to go back in shortly. The reason being, running a single brood chamber, I want the queen to have 10 frames to lay out 10 frames of brood. Something I will do different next year, I won't put my queen excluders on so soon. I think, I've bounced this idea off of a number of commercial guys. I'm gonna let them go, we run all deep equipment. So we're gonna go 3 deep, and around maybe May 2nd, May 3rd, we're gonna shake all the bees down and then put our queen excluder in. And what that does, it leaves a whole brood box in the second box. As it hatches, they'll backfill all that where the brood was at the end of the flow. That's something I'll do different next year. I think the single brood chamber management and just bringing one frame up, the bees didn't really want to go through that excluder yet. You need a lot more action on the top side of the queen excluder. So I think that's why we had so much swarming this year. Because I just set them. I did everything I could. We set them back. Everything we could do, and still they were swarming. And they were swarming in early May. Like when the flow is on, they shouldn't be swarming at all. It wasn't just me. It's a lot of people. Bob Benny and Philip Haynes and Cameron, all the guys I know who run more hives than me, they're seeing the same thing. It was just a weird year, but that's farming for you.
I caught the first swarm on March and 5th.
It's probably on Hive.
I got 2 swarms this week.
Really? You can't make this stuff up. We had a day I got into a bee yard. There was a big like a thorn bush. I saw one hive. I got in there. There's a second one. I'm catching it. There's a third one, all in the same bush. Like the more I kept moving around, the more swarms I kept seeing. Come back 2 days later, she caught one. Come back 2 days after that, caught 2 more, all on the same bush.
I caught 3 on one bush this year.
Yeah, and I'm doing. All those colonies at that point had 2 nukes taken out of them. So it was a heck of a year. But overall, it all said and done, I'm very pleased with our I've got a good idea about how much honey we've got. I was very pleased with the year and pleased with our education, what we learned. I mean, there's no substitute to years of experience. It's just not. So you can watch. I'm YouTube certified. You can watch all the YouTube you want, but it's it's just no substitution for the years. So that's why I tell people, if you have a better way, call me. If you got an idea, I call a lot of people. And I'm constantly just, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about that? Well, and then people call me. I say, well, I don't think that would work because of it. Or heck yeah, I'm stealing that idea. It's get to know people in the club and get to know people in other clubs. And you wouldn't believe how many YouTube people you watch will pick up the phone. I've got friends from Alabama to Missouri. I mean, I've never met, but we talk regularly. We're all seeing the same thing. So, any other questions? Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.